Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world joining us today, and welcome to our International Student Careers Symposium. My name is Murray Dixon and I'm a careers specialist here at the University of Melbourne, and I'm in the Careers and Employability team. And I'll be the presenter for the first part and the close of our symposium today. But before I introduce the content, let me just properly introduce myself. I studied a Bachelor of Economics, majoring in Economics and Marketing, which I completed in 2013 at the University of Melbourne. I then worked for 3 years in the digital marketing team at Deloitte, which many of you may have heard of. And since I've worked for 3 years in the careers space, including at a company called Performance Education, where I was an intern advisor and professional year trainer for international students going through their professional year program. So hopefully some of the tips and information I'm about to share with you will come across as super relevant. So before we kick off, it's really important that I do an acknowledgement of country. So we acknowledge the traditional owners of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And it's particularly important that we acknowledge this as we are a very diverse makeup who's attending this, but I am running this from the University of Melbourne in Parkville, Melbourne, and it's always important to acknowledge the owners of the land. But just thank you for those who filled out the poll results, informing us where you're viewing this from. It seems that there's a bit of a mix, with many of you actually joining this webinar from within Australia. So welcome to one and all, and I hope you find this session worthwhile. So in terms of what we'll be going through today, so there's a rough outline which will probably go for around 90 minutes. The first 15 minutes you'll be with me, and I'll be describing employability in the current labour market. Then we'll have panel insights and a Q&A on the skills you need with your degree and why work experience is important, and that will be moderated by my colleague Madeline. And lastly, I'll be back to demonstrate how to access careers and employability services for support, tools and information. So firstly, we're going to talk about employability in the current labour market. So I just want to unpack a couple of these words first. So employability, you might be hearing that word a lot increasingly. The name of my team is the Careers and Employability team, and I'll unpack it a bit later as well. And the labour market, it essentially refers to the job market here in Australia and overseas, where the demand for employees is met by the supply of employees. And in Australia, we'll see that that's quite a positive story to tell. So the Australian labour market, just based on these two charts, notwithstanding some shocks which happen to the economy here and there, over the last 5 years, employed people in Australia, it's going up and up and up. The employment rate is going down and down and down. So this is great news if you're looking to develop a career in Australia, because the demand for employees is definitely here. However, if we look at global GDP per capita trends over the past 18 or so years. This is data from the International Labour Organization's World Employment and Social Outlook report, released early this year in January, and it categorizes countries according to the World Bank's World Development Indicators. So we see high-income countries, upper middle income, lower middle income, and low income. So Australia, as you would guess, falls into the high-income country, which has had a growth of 1.3 times from 2000 to 2018 in terms of GDP per capita. But what's particularly interesting here is to look at upper middle-income countries and lower middle-income countries, which have grown at a much higher rate compared to higher-income countries over the same period. Even low-income countries will probably catch up at some point. So the point that we're hoping to illustrate in this slide is that indeed the labour market is strong here in Australia, but even overseas, and likely in the country that you're viewing this webinar from, the economy is getting stronger and stronger the more globalised our society becomes. So this is all an introduction to composition of student populations and employability. So if we look at this chart, we can see, based on OECD, which is the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development, their data from 2019 showed that Australia has a pretty high proportion of students who are international students. So you make up roughly 22.5% of our student population here in Australia as of 2019. However, there's a country that has us beat, and it's not Denmark, it's not Norway, it's not Sweden, it is Luxembourg. And look at that jump So in Luxembourg, just under 50% of the students there are classified as international students. And this can be explained by the fact that tertiary education is free in Luxembourg. It's a relatively small country with a small population, and it's landlocked around some big countries in Europe. So a lot of people might be choosing to go there to study. But the fact that Australia is second after that, it's pretty strong, paints a pretty strong picture in terms of how attractive having a career in Australia might be and how attractive the educational institutions here might be. Now, if we talk a bit about employability, in essence, employability refers to the transferable skills, personal attributes, work-related experiences, reflective disposition and identity that graduates need to succeed in the workforce. So when you hear the word employability, you may very well think that it's the skills and experiences you have, and they are an integral component, which we will explore further. But it's also a lot of your attributes and disposition and having a positive frame of mind in addition to many other things that contribute to your employability. If you have employability skills, if you're highly employable, it means you're more likely to secure the job that you want in Australia and in your home country or wherever you want. And so let's unpack employability and skill set. So everybody has a skill set, which is comprised, generally speaking, of hard skills and soft skills. However, there are lots of other names for these categorizations. So if we first explore hard skills, that can refer to specialized skills, technical skills, or software skills. And similarly, there are lots of other ways that you can refer to soft skills, such as transferable skills, enterprise skills, and even 21st century skills. So if we think of these two categories, let's explore each in turn. Firstly, hard skills. So this could be a specialized skill such as report writing, whether it's a science report, finance report, etc., process mapping, architectural drafting, or scientific investigation. So these are skills that aren't necessarily in demand regardless of what your occupation is, but they are specialized to a particular occupation or industry. And technical software skills, examples include AutoCAD, Tableau, MYOB, and Adobe InDesign. So it's important to realize that hard skills are most likely to be developed during your studies at university. But how could you develop your soft skills and what are they? So you'll see that I've got a question mark next to soft skills because we're going to explore that in much greater detail in the next slide. The competencies that employers assess for. So indeed what they're looking for as well. And in terms of where employers get the chance to assess for different skills, this can be in a resume, a cover letter, and throughout an interview process. And so if we go through from number 10 to number 1, the top competencies they're looking for, we've got leadership, self-management, understanding of our organization, planning and organizing, emotional intelligence, resilience, initiative and enterprise, and now we go up to a massive spike in terms of what's assessed and very important. That's interpersonal skills, teamwork, and the number 1, always, communication skills. And I should mention that this is from the Australian Association of Graduate Employers, which is an annual publication and group of employers who actually provide information in terms of what they're looking for in graduates from university. And it's comprised the latest version of 111 of Australia's biggest employers providing input. So all of these are important soft or transferable skills to have, but one that I'd like to unpack a bit more is emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence is worth discussing because it's the one that's the most amorphous, it's the one that doesn't make immediate sense based on the phrase. So Daniel Goleman is one of the 2 authors of an article that I got this chart from in the Harvard Business Review. He's an emotional intelligence expert and he categorized it according to 4 domains and 12 competencies. So there's self-awareness, which includes self-awareness of your emotional state. There's self-management, which is emotional self-control. Adaptability, so say if you do have a bad day at work, do you let that affect how you're interacting with other people or can you adapt? Achievement orientation, and more or less having a positive outlook, which can be difficult at times, but it's always a good thing to strive for. Then social awareness, empathy, which I'm sure everybody's heard a lot, it's increasingly important, and organizational awareness. And in terms of relationship management, influence, your ability to influence others, your ability to coach and mentor others, manage conflicts, participate in teamwork, and provide inspirational leadership to those who follow you. So there are lots of components. Hopefully this doesn't overwhelm you, but it's just to illustrate the many dimensions of emotional intelligence, all of which you probably do need to reflect on at some point as you develop your career in Australia or beyond. And here we've got a quote from Austrade, which is part of the Australian government. It's a quote from last year from their Innovation and Employability report. International graduates are a crucial component of a well-educated, highly skilled workforce. Without a talent pipeline, industry cannot innovate. Without business, graduate careers won't flourish. So we felt that this slide was important to include as increasingly the value of international students and international graduates in Australian society is being realised because a lot of companies realise the importance of having diversity of thinking. The greater the diverse makeup of your team is, the more likely you can provide innovative solutions to clients, which is something that such as my previous employer Deloitte was always looking to do. And of course, increasingly it's becoming important to Australia and many countries in the world, around the world to make sure that all of their graduates' careers can flourish within their economy. And now if we think about how you can get your foot in the door, and by foot in the door, I mean how can you get started? What are next steps for you to take away from this symposium? So, being able to explain your work rights, which are unique to you as an international student with particular visa, being persistent and demonstrating your willingness and eagerness to work. Willingness is one thing, but to be genuinely eager to be working for an organisation is another very valuable thing. Demonstrating a genuine interest in the job you're applying for, and this draws attention to the importance of tailoring job applications for what an organisation is looking for. Targeting the small to medium-sized enterprise or SME market, as they are arguably more receptive to international graduates than some of the larger organisations in Australia, so they're important to have in your consideration set. Being resilient by taking smaller steps and constantly striving to develop employability skills, which I went through before. And self-sourcing work experience opportunities such as internships and volunteering, and strategically using your networks, including leveraging a social media platform called LinkedIn. And developing local professional and social connections and increasing local and cultural and social understandings. So that concludes my introduction. So what we're going to do now is show a second poll for you to complete, and it's asking you what skills are you most eager to develop? And you can select as many skills as you like. And now we're going to give you about 60 seconds and then our panel discussion will start.
Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Madeline Organero and I'm a careers specialist at the University of Melbourne. It's my pleasure tonight to host this panel discussion. We've got a 45-minute panel where our panellists will be talking about their skills and experience that are important to their career journeys. To begin with, I'll be asking our panellists a series of questions, but we would love for you to be a part of the conversation as well. So during the panel discussion, our live chat function will be available so that you can pop your questions in, and we'll have 15 minutes at the end of the panel where we'll get to your questions. And it's my pleasure now to introduce our three panellists that are joining us this evening. So first we have Doris Wu, who is an analyst in strategic planning and performance with Culture Amp and a former University of Melbourne student. We have Archit Agrawal, who is a student peer leader here at the university and the president of Melbourne, the University of Melbourne Student Union International. And we have Ying Hu, who is a peer leader as well and an international student officer at the Graduate Student Association. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate your time. So I might begin by asking you all to introduce yourselves briefly to our audience. So definitely. Doris?
Hi, glad to meet you, everyone. So I'm Doris. I came from China, studied in Shanghai for my bachelor study, and then came to Australia to do my Master of Management Finance study in Melbourne Uni back in 2015. And then after my graduation, I started my career as a finance graduate in a local company called Land, Dairy and Drinks, and then did a couple of rotations in their finance graduate program. And then after that, I secured a role as a commercial analyst, worked for about 2 years. So recently, I just changed roles from Lion to a company called Culture Amp and doing commercial analyst role to have a bit more sense about the technology and startup world.
Great, thank you.
So my name is Ashit, like Madeline said, and thank you for having us here. And I am a third-year Bachelor's of Science student. I'm majoring in computer science, but I'm also really interested in international relations and human rights issues. I do my breadth track and electives around a lot of social subjects. I am from India. I came to Australia in February 2018. Since then, I've been involved in the student life on campus through the union here at the University of Melbourne. And now I'm a part of the Careers and Employability team at Stop One as a peer leader. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. Hi everyone, my name is Ying. I'm also from China, like Doris. I finished my bachelor's degree in psychology back in Wuhan University, and I came to Australia to pursue a master's degree in early childhood and primary teaching. In my professional role as a student peer leader like Archit, I help students land their careers, find their first jobs, especially international students, with passion and confidence. And also in my volunteering role as an international officer at the GSA, the Graduate Student Association at university, I represent the international graduate student cohort. And I'm really passionate about female leadership, work-life balance, and also engagement, community and student engagement. I find myself thrive in the workplaces that are inclusive, respectful, and fast-paced. Thanks.
Thank you. So my first question will be for you, Doris. So you've had quite a range of experiences both here and overseas. And I'm interested in hearing about some of the key skills that you've developed through those experiences and how those skills have helped you to move into the role that you're in at the moment.
Yep, definitely. So I feel no matter it's in China or in here, the key skills for all the workplace will be the soft skills, which including the communication skills. So that means I need to be able to talk with different people and also to clearly to express about how do I want this work to be done or how can I deliver this work on time to the people about manage their expectation. So the second part will be prioritization. So during the workforce, of course, we'll be having multiple things going on. And it's very important to figure out which one is the most important one that we need to put in as the must to-do list, and then which one is something we can talk with our teammates or have some other people to help to cover up. And the third part, but the most important part, is the problem-solving skills. So that means the person needs to have the ability to peel off the issue, to make it small pieces and then to solve it from the root, so that even maybe the solution was not that obvious in the beginning, but the person do have the ability to think about the different ways to try to approach and closer to the truth.
Excellent. And it's really interesting to hear that a lot of the skills that you rely on in your role are similar to the skills that Murray described in his presentation as well, such as communication, prioritization. Excellent. Thank you. So for our peer leaders, I would be interested in hearing a little bit about the experiences that you've both had prior to becoming peer leaders with the Careers and Employability team. So maybe Archit, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. So I started most of my time on campus has been volunteering with the student union. I started as a volunteer, and in my very first semester, the union was having their elections, so I just volunteered for that as well, and I went for elections, and I became an education and welfare officer, and since then I've been working with the union as well. I moved on to the peer leader role last year in around February, and the reason for doing that, making that switch from I still do the union work, but doing this as well was to understand that there's certain professional skills that a professional office space like Stop One could provide me with, and working in teams, professional teams, and working on professional communication as well, stuff like that, and that's something I've realized since I joined this role as well, that no matter how much you volunteer, if you want to be ready for the workforce out there, you should be looking for professional development at all times. Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you. Thanks.
So I share a lot of same experience with Archie in terms of student engagement. I also have volunteering experience back in China in my alma mater. So at the master level, I thought it would be a natural step up for me to work for the university in a professional role. So from day one, after coming to Australia, I found myself really inclined to work for the university. And the strategy I used to become more employable is by engaging more with the career services on campus. That's how I learned about this role called Student Peer Leader, which I'm really privileged to work right now with Archit. That when I was looking on Careers Online, a website which students can log in to find opportunities both on campus and off campus. I was there, I came across this role, I was like, this is the one for me, and I really want to go for it. So I kept going to the drop-in service offered by Student Peer Leader Network and going to the workshops using online resources like Employ Me, Careers Online. Now we have the Smart Resume. I think these were the strategies I used to apply for the role and essentially become a Student Peer Leader.
Excellent. Lovely. And it's great to hear that you have both accessed the services that are available on campus as well. So my next question will be for you, Archit. And it's something that a lot of international students might experience when they come to the Australian labour market in terms of how significant networking is and how important those skills are to develop. So Archit, what have you done to develop your networking skills?
So it definitely started with students. I think as soon as you come on campus, there's a number of clubs that are running. So you have to, and even within your lectures and your tutorials, if you get early there, there's no need to sit quietly in a corner. Just walk up to someone who looks familiar and, try to have a conversation. I think that was really helpful to start with. It did not particularly help me with my networking skills, but it did help me with my confidence, and also settling into the Australian culture, realizing what people in Australia talk about as well. Now in more professional roles, I think I've started doing this thing where I try to get to meetings a little bit early, and whoever's sitting next to me, I'll try to say hi to them and introduce myself and get to know them a little bit. And after the meeting, if we were talking about something during the meeting, and there's a person that was talking about the same things as you, I'll try to walk up to them and ask them, hey, we had similar ideas, and it was really fun listening to you, and maybe we should talk more about it sometime over coffee. So just being a little bit more confident. I was really shy when I came to Melbourne, and it took some time for me to get out there and start doing that, even within my tutorials, even small groups. But I've realized one thing since then, that even for people who are a little bit higher up in in their career trajectory than you, they're always willing to talk to you. And you might not always follow up with these people, but you'll always have a nice experience. You'll always have a nice conversation. So it's worth trying, and I definitely recommend networking for every student, especially international students on campus. It is the way to be successful in Australian job markets.
Amazing. Thanks, Archie. That's a great point.
Yeah, and it's really great to hear that you took advantage of situations on campus where you could practice those skills, get to know people and start to build your network, but then also maximising those professional engagements that you had as well to really develop those professional relationships and get to know people working in the industry that you're interested in. So we can see that there are some really great questions coming through on the live chat, so please do keep them coming and hopefully we'll get to them soon. So my next question is for you, Ying. I wonder if you might be able to talk to us a little bit about some of the transferable skills that you've developed and the skills that you found useful in multiple roles that you've had.
Great, that's a great question, thanks. So the transfer skills are very, very important for us in the future because based on numerous research, that young professional can easily change up to, on average, 6 professional careers in our lifespan. So having this on the side, gaining work experience that are relatable to the transfer skills, I found that very helpful for me. The one transferable skill for me, I would say, is communication. That comes in good times and the challenging times. In good times when I have a great idea, but I'm young, I don't have much experience, I would go to my supervisor or my colleagues on the team to see their feedback. And that's how we can get great initiative to be arranged and to be happen with the students on campus. And in challenging time, for example, in terms of being international student, managing workload, I found myself enrolling full-time and also doing a professional role and a few volunteers on the side. This is very challenging. And coming from Asian country, having high standard for myself, it's easier for me to stay silent, saying that I can handle everything, other than speaking up, saying that I need support, I need help, I want to say no, please. And I found that come very handy for me with the support of my mentors and networks to speak up and saying that I just need some more time to delegate, I just need some more strategies. So communication skill is one thing I like to hyphen for international students to be aware of and practice. And that ends up in English skills. My English was not perfect, and I just keep going to events, communicate with my friends and colleagues, and that's how my English improves. Thanks.
Excellent.
May I
That's it.
just add something there on
Yeah.
Ying's point about English, that, English, Ying said that her English was not perfect, and, for a lot of international students, English might be their second or third language when they come to Australia. I think it is something that's really brave that students choose to do, to come to a country that is not their own and try to speak a language that is not their own, even though they're fluent in one or two languages already. And if you're feeling underconfident about, your English not being perfect, don't be worried, In that classroom, if someone is speaking English fluently because it's their first language, I think you're already doing better than them, on the language front at least.
Yes.
So don't be shy and don't be underconfident. Speak out because, you've earned this for yourself. Yeah.
Definitely. That's really great advice. And I think, it's a really great message for our international students to get involved in university activities, to contribute in class as a way of, building those communication skills and getting to know people that are studying with them as well. All right, so my next question is for you, Doris. So you've gained work experience both here in Melbourne and overseas as well. Can you describe those experiences for us and how you navigated those different labour markets?
Yeah, definitely. So back in China, I have worked as an intern and also part-time in Coca-Cola as a commercial finance intern, Nike as a finance intern, and also Richmond, which is a luxury company, as a commercial insights intern. So it's more like an analytical job, pretty similar with the things that I'm doing at the moment, but I feel the workforce environment is totally different. So I think in general, my general feeling would be in Australia, the company here will be really valuable for you to fit into the culture. So not just a skill fit, but also the personality fit to be a really good team player and can really not just to add value to the work people are doing and also add value to the team itself. So that concept is something that I figure out is a little bit different compared to the overall workforce environment in overseas. But skill set perspective, like we have mentioned a couple of times before, like it's all transferable skills. The communication skills, the courage that you can stand up and express your opinions, and also the problem solving, the prioritization, it's all the same no matter where you are.
Yeah, definitely. That's really great advice. Thank you. Archit, my question for you is something that hopefully many of our international students might be thinking about around how they can get involved in various activities on campus. So you're currently the president of the University of Melbourne Student Union International. And can you tell us a bit more about USMU International and how students might get involved?
Yes, absolutely. So UMSU International, the University of Melbourne Student Union International, is basically the peak representative body of all international students here at the University of Melbourne. UMSU International represents international students at all boards, academic and welfare boards across the community, across the university. We also organize events for students, welfare events, educational events, social events. Just last week we had our first international film festival, which showed movies from all around the world. And, we try to make our events as cute and as intimate as possible as well, because after, all the professional meetings and all the classroom discussions, international students deserve to come back into a community and feel, they're familiar with something. And that's very important for them, since their families might not be here. it's important to feel that they're part of a social group where they can feel that they're at home, their heart is at home. So that's what UMSU International's purpose is. If you want to get involved in UMSU International, I started as a volunteer. So a volunteer in UMSU International is called an International Student Ambassador, and intakes happen every semester, so you could just apply and become a volunteer. If someone didn't want to become a volunteer and just wanted to take on one of the representative roles in the UMSU International Office Bearer Committee, they could go for elections. So UMSU International elections happen every May. The purpose of this community is one thing, that there's a student union at UMSU that represents all students, but UMSU International is there to recognize that international students here on our campus have the most unique experience, and they have problems that may or may not be similar to local students or other communities. And that's why we are there, to understand everything that you're going through and to support you in every way we can. And if we can't, we work very closely with Stop One, and we work closely with GSA and the university in every way possible. And we're just another pillar into the student services here provided at the University of Melbourne. So tap into UMSU International as well as international students if you feel that there's a need for you to, if you need help in finding a community and finding a home here far away from home, Yeah.
Thank you. And it's great to hear that there is a community for international students on campus. Ying, my next question goes back to, there are so many opportunities, there's a lot of things that you can get involved with, and it might be difficult for international students to know where to start or how much to take on. So do you have any advice for students that might be wondering, how to make those decisions or how to choose what to get involved with?
Yeah, so you mean the work-life balance?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I actually didn't expect when I first stepped in Australian community. I just saw opportunities in front of me, which I was really driven to either apply for or be involved in. So once I was in the role, whether it's professional role and commenced my full-time studies and also volunteering roles, I found the workload just builds up, and I found that my calendar become more colorful, and that's why I mentioned communication skills are the most transferable and the key skill that we need to have as international students. Because in Australia, when you find yourself in a workplace, a good workplace would allow you to communicate and manage expectations. So that's something I learned, not until that I faced this challenge to find that very effective for me. And I just communicate with my colleagues and team leaders in terms of how I can delegate. And that worked really well for me. So that's something I like to bring to the international students about. It's a really admirable thing for you to step out to contribute more to the local communities by volunteering, by working a job on the side, and also being an international student. Being aware of our student rights and also work rights, and also working a few different roles together is really good. But at the end of the day, the well-being is also an important thing. This is one thing I've learned last year through error and trial, and also with my support network, for example, my family, people who care about me, and also the counseling service. The one lesson I learned is that life is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Having that in my mind really put everything into perspective in terms of, okay, I don't need to finish everything immediately. I can just slow down a little bit, enjoy it, go hang out with friends, do some networking, go to UMSU and GSA for social events. And I still go to the gym when I could. Now I go to the gym every day. And I found that really helpful for me because I got the blood flowing. I could think more rapidly. I can work more efficiently. So communication skills, work-life balance, and time management, expectation management is very important as an international student.
Definitely.
Yeah. May I just say something?
Absolutely.
If you have a little bit
Go for it.
because Ying touched on, this being a sprint sometimes, for some of us, because when you come into Australia, you have been told that there's either a 3-year time period that you need to finish your degree in, or a 2-year time period that you need to finish your degree in. I have realized that last year as well, by involvement in different activities, that the priority always is your health and your well-being. And it's okay if you want to take a little bit more time. I've started to access a lot more support services on campus than I used to in my first year. And my advice to every international student is when things start to get difficult, when it starts to get rough, seek help, you know. Do not feel that you're alone. There's always people to help you. And just reach out. Yeah.
Definitely. So I might move on to a question that's come through from our chat. Thank you for submitting all of those questions. Students are asking what experiences are the best to do at university to help you succeed in employment. So if you think about your own university experiences, are there particular roles or opportunities that you've accessed that have helped move you into the next role?
Do you want to start, Doris?
Yeah, maybe I can start. So that reminded me when I was in a student organization called ISAC. So I feel that type of experience is the most valuable one for me to be part of employment because that involved for me to work very closely with a group of students that came from different cultural background for a really intensive time of period, and then we got time to plan for things, to do conference, and also to do the plan for the whole student organization. So I feel that's what about experience. I think so does lots of student associations. So as long as you can have a chance to work closely with a group of people to contribute with the same goal, with the same task, that everyone can put some ideas in and working towards the same direction, then you're actually getting you're building up your own skills similar to the workforce. That's it's teamwork, and you're part of team, and also you're working with someone speaking different language or came from different background with you. So that would be valuable.
Yeah, excellent.
I really
Lovely.
like the experience you have with Isaac and also the transferable skills in terms of communication, multicultural kind of work experience. I'd like to build on that. Thanks for that, Doris. Is that I work as student peer leader at the Careers and Employability Studio. There are many international students who came to us asking about the same question, and found the focus is a bit astray in terms of they're looking for specific organizations or experience to build up their skill. But at the end of the day, it's more about how to build transferable skills that we have identified. So for example, when I was applying for the student peer leader role, I saw the gap between my current then status in terms of the skill with the criteria that they require. These are the communication skills, teamwork skills, customer service, time management. Because I lack those, so I went out to seek opportunities that would specifically help me build these skills through volunteering and online events. In University of Melbourne, there are lots of events, and also the Leica Award, which is the Leaders in Communities Award that recognize this experience. I think go with your heart and identify the skill that you need to build, and find the experience that match these these skills. That at the end of the day, you're gonna get the role that is your dream. Yeah.
Excellent. And actually, I think you're in quite a unique position because the peer leader position is your first paid position, isn't it?
Yeah.
So maybe would you mind telling us a little bit about how you presented your skills, to move into that type of role?
Yeah, definitely. Just to, I think no one job or, no one activity contributed to who I am today. I think everything helps.
Definitely.
In some way or the other, if you're doing some productive work, it's going to help. Do not think this has no value. But the question that I was asked, I think this was my first job, and when I saw the position description, there was a requirement for a key selection criteria on there and a cover letter on there. And I come from India, and I have never heard of what a key selection criteria is. And I was like, what is that? What is a cover letter? And I had a week before the deadline for the job. I did not have just to learn, didn't just have to learn what those terms were, but also had to master them to project myself in the best way possible. So I think it was really interesting. I sort of went out to the careers team at the university and asked them, hey, I'm trying to get a job at the careers team at the university. So could you help me to, understand what a key selection criteria is? And they showed me this wonderful website on the University of Melbourne, and all I had to type into Google was key selection criteria, UNIMELB. And
Yeah.
this amazing lot of information was thrown at me about understanding how to write that job application. And another interesting part of this is that as a peer leader, our daily job is basically to help students write job applications, to proofread their resumes and key selection criteria. So a year ago, I did not know what this is, and now I am supposed to be an expert. Hopefully, I am an expert in advising students in understanding how to understand these documents and how to present yourself in the best way possible to the employers, so that they recognize your skills, even though these skills might be coming from a different country or a different language or a different field altogether.
Absolutely. That's excellent. Lovely. Thank you. So a lot of students are interested in hearing about the different types of companies that might employ international students. I'm wondering, in your own job search, how you identified the companies or organisations that you wanted to work for and how you navigated that process.
Yeah, maybe I can start with this one. So in my job search, I found so when we are saying international students, there are actually two types. First type is you already got the visa issue solved. The second type is you haven't. It's very crucial, but it is. So for the students, you already got the visa issue solved. I just want to say, be confident. You can do everything you want, and you can definitely stand up and compete with all the local students in the job market, because your opinions and your international experience, the most importantly, you move from overseas to a different country. That's experience, that's courage is really valuable. But for those students who haven't got the visa issue solved, I want to say that don't give up. There are lots of companies, especially small and medium business, which is the majority of Australia job market. They're actually open for the students that haven't got their visa issue solved, and they are happy to accept anyone really fit into their skill set or their culture. So that you can just reach out, talk with different people, and then try different websites, and then apply as many as possible as you can. And then maybe someday maybe the company is not that big yet, but when you grow up with the company may grow, and also yourself may gain experience from there and to a bigger place. So there's a lady, I forgot her name, but she's currently the CEO of Rationale. I think she's an international student background. Started with Rationale when it was still a very small business, like 10 people, and she's starting as a marketing coordinator. Then she grew up together with the company, and now she's the CEO of Rationale. Rationale is the most growing cosmetic brand in Australia, and currently more than 100 people there now.
That's amazing. I'm sure Archie and I, because we're still studying, will be really much looking forward to applying for jobs to small to medium companies and industries.
Absolutely. I think you pretty much covered all of it. But two key messages there were, I think, small and medium industries, and don't give up. It's gonna be hard, but don't give up. Keep trying. Networking is important.
And that's another question that has come through in our chat from some of our students. How significant networking is in terms of can it actually lead to positions, and how have you used networking in your job search?
I would say definitely. Sorry.
Yeah.
With the psychology background, I must say that Australia, I used to get a job on campus. That is very competitive, but I knew that we're the average of 5 most connected person or resources. So the strategy I used was to build connections with those students who are already working on campus and just learn from them, exchange experience. I think for Doris, what would be also helpful for the students who are seeking graduate employment would be a platform that's called Ask Alumni. I've heard great feedback about my friends going to this platform and speaking with the career industry professionals, and they learn the new opportunities they can use after graduation other than just simply graduate roles. So their horizon has been broadened.
So for that, my feeling is the days that when I was looking for a graduate program job, I feel I don't really understand what the company really wants. So even I saw the job description, but I feel like I understand every single words that the job description is saying, but I just don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. So what I did to build up my own confidence and also to understand the situation is I really actively attend all the events, career events, networking events, all the events that I can find to attend these events. And then to touch base with the people I met in the events, all the speakers, send them a follow-up message on LinkedIn saying, would you mind catch up for coffee with me? So often those people, they might sit in really high senior position in the company, like a director, the partner of the KPMG or something. But often those people will reply with, oh, I'm happy, so say time and we can catch up. So it will be really short, half-hour catch-up, but it's really helpful for me to firstly understand what the senior people looking at when I'm a young, fresh graduate and didn't have any working experience. Secondly, it's also helpful for me to build up my confidence and then to have the courage to talk with senior people. So that's why I think networking is very valuable. And then after that, I actually build really good connections with those people. And I send them messages or emails every now and then to ask about some career coaching advice or just say updates about my latest career progress.
That's really great advice. You know, you might start out just meeting someone to talk about a particular opportunity, but in doing that, you're building your network, and you know, by keeping in touch with people that you meet along the way, it's a great opportunity for you to build that network, and you never know when someone might have an opportunity for you further down the track as well. Great, thank you. So we've got a question here, I suppose, setting aside networking, what other things did you find helpful in the job searching process? So, you know, you would have met with people along the way, done your networking, but are there other things that were helpful in terms of like industry research or any resources that were particularly useful in helping you to secure a role?
Do you want to start first?
Yeah. I only have had one job.
But you are helping students to find jobs.
I think Careers Online was a great resource to start with. But ever since then, I'm advising students, you know, in ways to find jobs. Often cold calling is not such a bad idea, you know. We ignore that, you know, we think only job applications are the best way to approach, you know. But cold calling also links with networking a little bit. But just since it's a technical term, what cold calling means is basically reaching out to an employer and, you know, passing on your details to them and saying that, you know, I'm interested in a role, and maybe you have something open at the moment, maybe you don't, but I just want to drop my information with you because I'm very keen to work with your company. It seems like the right fit. It seems like you were made for me and I was made for you. And, you know, and after that, maybe after a month or two, or maybe after 6 months, follow up, call them up and ask them, you know, I dropped in my details, my resume, a few months ago, and is there something that has opened up? Be keen. There's nothing wrong with being keen and reaching out and being proactive. Often employers do like that as well. Instead of just, you know, them looking out for you, you can also look out for them, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And it's a great way that you can showcase your skills to the employer that is specific to the role that you might be looking for. But it's also really great advice to not only rely on advertised positions that you can find online, but also to realise that there are many other positions available. Just if you do a little bit of digging, you can find them and source some really great opportunities that way as well. Excellent.
I like to build on Archie's point
Sure.
in terms of utilising the resources available online. For example, Careers Online, Employee Me, and our career services. I'm an extra person, so I tend to find more resources for myself in preparation of an interview, assessment center, or a job application. So other than utilizing these resources in person and online, I've also gone on YouTube, podcast app on my phone, and I find out there's a series of great podcasts called Ask Alumni Podcasts. Now they have 3 episodes, which is really great, covering different disciplines and also starting somewhere, which is an amazing platform. The hosts, they invite career consultants to their episodes and also invite other professionals and alumni sharing their experience of how to land a professional role, professional internship in the industry, and that's all University of Melbourne podcasts. That's something I highly recommend. Today, I've been listening to podcasts on how to become a good panelist.
Excellent. Very nice. Great. All right, so one question that's come through from an audience member is just around, you've all spoken about how important your communication skills are in the workplace. And maybe if we can provide an example of how you use those communication skills. So maybe Doris, we'll start with you. Is there a way, do you find, that your communication is particularly useful or in a particular element of the work that you do?
Yeah. So for me, well, if I'm an analyst, which means most of my job is analytical, but it's very important to understand when people hand me a piece of work or when the finance director comes to me, like, I want this type of analysis. And then I need to ask the clarification about to understand what he actually needs and what he expects from me. So that's a really good practice of communication skills, because you need to make it very clear about what he expects, when did he expect those things to be delivered, and then to what extent of details, and then also to communicate back with what do you think your capacity would be, and when do you think you can finish this thing, and to manage the whole process under his expectation. And also sometimes maybe there are too many people ask you for something, and it's very important to say no in a really nice and polite way. So that's also a time that you can use your communication skills, saying that I really want to do this work for you, and I think it's very important and valuable for the business. However, I currently got this priority in my hand, so would you mind if we can do this one 2 days later, and which is still in your timeline stream, but it's still achievable, but it's just not my current priority.
Fair enough.
Communication skill, other than the examples we discussed before, is that communication skills I found are very helpful in my role for customer service and student advising role. I'm a volunteer greeter at the State Library Victoria. Basically, every other week I would go to the library to have a shift, standing at the front, visiting visitors from all around the world. And I really enjoyed the moment, each individual moment I provide for any visitors about utilizing my multicultural communication skills, which I learned in my training and work experience, about just seeing their smiles on their faces. And also, through my volunteer, I met a very experienced previous CEO of a few multinational organizations. And he told me he was an introvert, so he's an introverted extrovert. So imagine him being an introvert and utilizing his experience, but through volunteering and career development, becoming an extrovert and just excel at customer service. That is a really inspiring image for me to learn from him and also to having as my mentor. Yeah.
Excellent.
I think also often communication skills are just limited to verbal communication skills. I think we should absolutely develop our written communication skills as well, because it's not always possible to have face-to-face communications. And this is one of the few places where you can actually rely on your degree to help you, especially if you're doing a commerce or an arts degree, your degree at the University of Melbourne has sort of prepared you for your written communication to be, absolutely perfect. So those are the things that, you don't always have to find experience and, stuff like that outside the classroom. Sometimes even through your assignments and projects, you can rely on skills like communication, teamwork, often come into play there as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of international students will already be using so many of these professional skills like communication and written communication as well. So it's great to know that all of that practice, really does prepare you for that professional environment as well. Sure. So we do have a question here as well that's just looking at grades and experience. Is that something that has come about in your job searching process, or is it really about demonstrating your skills, demonstrating your experience?
I think during my job searching experience, the grades will be somehow helpful for you in graduate program itself. So as I know, most of big companies who are recruiting for graduate program, they require as a minimum 65 average degree for your degree, and then for some particularly competitive industry like investment banking and consulting, they may require you as a HD from university. However, for all the other roles, that's no matter it's in big company or small company, as long as it's not those graduate program, you can still get a really good role, no matter what's your grade is. It don't really doesn't matter to that extent. And then what's the other part?
And so employers are often looking for experience as
Yes,
well, so they want to
experience.
know that you have the experience and skills to do the role effectively. Yeah.
Because most of people, when you graduate from uni, often you don't really have working experience. So the company understands that as well. So they are hiring you, didn't expect that you have exactly hardcore skills that they're looking for. They're more like to seeing you the potential of growing. So as long as you can prove that you're a nice team worker, can contribute to the team, that you have good communication, those fundamental skills that we are talking about. And also you are keen to learn and also a fast learner. So as long as you prove that you are capable of these 2 points, I think most of companies will be happy to hear you. And maybe some companies, they will require some specific education background like engineering or extra stuff. But most of the time, those things are like also important, but not as important as your fast learner and also the communication part.
Yeah. Some of those professional
Thanks,
skills.
Doris, for sharing your experience in terms of seeking graduate opportunities. I've learned from podcasts and also attending a few career conferences that those recruiters, they're saying they're looking for well-rounded candidates that are able to manage work-life balance. So that goes back to our point in terms of managing study load and also workload. And they would like to see these student candidates give experience and evidence about their successful story. So I think the grades come into picture, but not as the only element they are thinking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Even as a science student, I think grades do matter sometimes, especially for graduate programs, it's a requirement. But recently, a career advisor just told me that, when I was really worried about my grades, they said to me that, when you apply for these positions, most companies are looking for professionals and workers. They're not looking for students. So it doesn't matter how well you can do in an exam, as long as you have those skills on your resume that are highlighting that, you're going to be a good fit for their professional environment. So you have to balance it out, I guess. Yeah.
And I suppose leading on from that, do you have advice for students, who do have some experiences or have been involved in volunteering or student clubs, about how they can present those skills and show an employer that they're able to do that?
Yeah, I think previously it's either Doris or actually you mentioned the other side of other than having experiences already. Another important skills for us to have, which are kind of lacking among the students we have seen, is how to communicate our skills in a professional way. For example, actually you learn about what key selection criteria is, and that the speed of you learning the concept and also applying that concept in your job application is something that our students are lacking. There are students coming to our studio asking for career advice. They have very good experience already, but they have yet to learn how to communicate them. That's how we can support you in the careers and employability studio and also the career services. So watch out for that.
Yeah, come to the career services. There's a great, not to go into a classroom of advising here, but whenever you are talking about any roles, I notice a lot of people mention their responsibilities, of what exactly was it that they did at the job. Now that provides some crucial details, and it's important to have it there. But it might be worthwhile to just throw in a skill in there with the same responsibility that you used to perform that responsibility, and maybe a result, an outcome, or an impact of you doing that action or using that skill had on the environment. Keeping it still brief, 1.5 lines, but giving a whole-rounded picture. We call them achievement statements at the careers team. So what it really means is that even through the most basic of the things that you're doing at your job, you're communicating that you're achieving and you're creating an impact, and you're learning and improving continuously. And that's key, I think, when putting things on your resume.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a really important point about identifying the skills that are being asked for in a job application, and really making sure that you're thinking about how you can demonstrate that you can do the job. Definitely. So I might just ask one final question to each of you. So what does the future hold for you, or what do you see your next steps as being? Doris, do you want to start?
Actually, I don't know as well.
Yeah.
So I currently see, I have a rough picture about, so for example, I want to be a commercial manager in next 3 to 5 years. And then, but for much more details, I actually don't really have that much picture, because within the workforce, I found opportunities come to me. It's really different time to time. So sometimes maybe I was picturing something else like 3 years ago. I wouldn't thought I'm in my current company. So it's over time that as long as you're a really responsible person and you're doing really excellent job, then the opportunity will come to you. People will be like, "Hi Doris, do you want to join my team to try this type of work?" Or that's through the work you're doing something else that you will be discover your new interest or your new different things you're really good at. So for me, I roughly know that I want to be a manager position. I want to lead and coaching to have my own team and work towards the same goal. But more specifically, if you ask me about which industry, which company, or even which location, I have to say I don't know. I think it's still open question to me about where do I want to be, location-wise or the future-wise. But I will leave it open for now.
Great, thank you.
I have absolutely no idea as well. It's so different than, 2 years ago when I started my bachelor's, I thought all I wanted to do was computing, and code. And then I did an internship over the summer in 2018, and I realized that, I do like computing, but I don't like a job in computing. I went through this phase where I thought I might want to do consulting. I tapped into political subjects, international relations. And so far I've narrowed it down to 2 things. I do like computing, and I do love to work with people. Some social aspects to my work is something that's really important to me as well. So I don't know what the future is going to look like and what the job is going to look like. Maybe it'll be in social services, maybe it'll be in computing, maybe I'll find an intersection of the 2 areas. What I have realized is that, and we mentioned it a few times during the discussion today as well, that as long as you're doing something productive, it is adding value, and you don't have to be worried about, I'm confused, I don't know what job I'm going to get when I graduate. That's okay. None of us know. And someone who has a plan, trust me, it's going to change over the years, It's never the same thing. And it's good that I don't know. I don't have to go through the disappointment of, feeling like, oh, God, I thought I want to do that, but now I don't want to do it. So keep your options open and make productive use of your time here at the University of Melbourne. There's a lot of great opportunities out there. Keep getting involved, and, there will be something great for you. Yeah.
Sounds very promising, Archit. For me, it's a great question. I would say, with a background in psychology, I know that I love people. I love communicating with people, and with the resources on employing me doing the tests, like psychological tests, I learned about the workplace culture fit that I would love to work for, the cultures that is respectful and also fast-paced learning. So I know where I want to go, and also with my teaching studies, I'm really passionate about education sector and also the teaching profession. So in 5 years, I do see myself doing teaching profession. But after that, I would say I would go with my heart. I would go to organizations that is aligned with my personal values, and I make sure I can contribute to the society. This is my personal value. I make sure that I have work-life balance. So I can't give you guys a good answer in terms of where I would land in terms of 5 years after now, but I know the direction. I know I will follow my heart. Yeah.
Great. Lovely. Well, Doris, Archit, Ying, thank you all so much for joining us and for sharing your experiences. I think it's been really insightful to hear about your own journeys, and I'm sure that our audience has appreciated, your advice and tips for them as well. So thank you for joining us. Before I hand over to Murray, I'd just like to let you know that we'll have one more poll to follow, and that will focus on the experience that you have to date. And thanks again. It's been a pleasure to host the panel this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope everybody found that panel discussion insightful and useful. I certainly learnt a lot, because you can always be in a state of learning regardless of what stage you are at in your career. So before I start to talk about our careers in employability services, thank you to those who answered the poll. And it seems that about 80% or 4/5 have actually had some experience to date, which is fantastic. And hopefully for those people who've had experience and for those who haven't had experience yet, you'll be able to leverage what you've learnt today in your pursuit of work and experience at university and in the job market. So what I'm going to talk about now is the phasing of your career journey. So at the University of Melbourne and across a lot of universities, we like to use phases of discover, focus and apply. So discover meaning reflection, researching opportunities and articulation, and constantly searching for what sort of job would fulfill you. Focus on career path planning and skills development, and apply practical application. So this isn't necessarily a case of you start in discover, move on to focus, move on to apply. You can be in all three phases at the same time, or you could jump from discover, apply, focus. But let me give you a personal example just before I move on. So I started at university in the University of Sydney in 2010, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. I still don't entirely. So I enrolled in a Bachelor of Arts. And I did all sorts of different subjects in my year of Bachelor of Arts, including language, Japanese, politics, film studies, economics, marketing. So I was in a discover phase. And then when I started to focus on economics and marketing, I'm good at that, there might be jobs there. And then I started to apply for those sorts of roles. But after I started working at Deloitte, I started in discover phase again, learning all about what I could do within that context. So this is just a useful frame for you to start thinking about your career and what part of this phase journey you're in and the back and forth that might occur as you progress through your studies and develop your career. And in the middle of that diagram, you'll see careers.unimelb.edu.au. That's a link to our website where I will talk about all the tools and support available to you as a student on the next slide. So, tools to support you in your journey. And Ying, one of the panelists before, mentioned a lot of these in her answers to Madeline. So firstly, find opportunities on Careers Online and also attend careers workshops. And it's worth mentioning as well that we do have the Careers in Employability Studio, and we also have a complimentary virtual offering, which is becoming increasingly important, of course. So you'll be informed about steps in terms of how to book in for a career consultation virtually in an email you'll receive after this webinar in the coming days. And also on Careers Online, you can engage with employers at careers fairs, employer information sessions, etc., which run throughout the semester and throughout the entire calendar year, every year. And you can also access tools on EmployMe. And there are lots of tools and resources for you to access. These include lots of tests like strengths assessment, personality tests, which can help you understand what sort of culture fit you could be for different organizations. And the three most popular tools on EmployMe are our CV Builder, or Resume Builder, the Cover Letter Builder, and a mock interview simulator, which are all excellent tools for you to use in the comfort of your own home to help prepare for job applications and to improve your employability. And lastly, prepare a resume and have it reviewed using Smart Resume, which was also referenced before. So Smart Resume is a recent tool that's launched at the University of Melbourne, and it's a suite of tools. The main tool within it is the resume review tool, but we also have a resume tailoring tool, a LinkedIn review tool in it, and an elevator pitch tool where you can record yourself delivering an elevator pitch and it gives you really cool feedback. Smart Resume is AI enabled and it uses machine learning to get smarter and more sophisticated the more students use it. So I'm actually going to show you an example of what Smart Resume feedback might look like. So there's a bit going on in this picture, but essentially with Smart Resume, if you log in using your University of Melbourne login details and you upload a PDF version of your resume, then it'll get a score out of 100. And it's ranked across a number of metrics, including impact, which is writing style, presentation, which is layout, and competencies, which is the content. And there are 3 different sections, so if you score between 0 to 32, your resume needs work, but it's not a negative sign at all. On track if you get a score between 32 and 85, and good job if you get 85 or more. And I do want to stress that if you try this out, and I encourage you to do so, don't be too discouraged by what score you might get. Me as a careers specialist, when I loaded in my resume, I got 50 out of 100. So I still need to improve my resume a lot. There's always opportunity to learn and improve in terms of your employability skills, even for somebody like me who's worked in the careers space for 3 years. But definitely check it out while you can. And that essentially wraps up our webinar. So thank you very much for attending. We hope that you found it worthwhile. This is the first webinar of this type that the Careers and Employability team at the University of Melbourne has run. So we'll actually, when you exit this webinar, you'll get the option to complete a survey. It would take you no longer than 2 minutes. We would love to get your feedback, positive and constructive, to help us improve this service offering moving forward. And we will be in touch soon to share a recording of this session and with some links to help you, for example, access a virtual career appointment. But thank you very much for signing in and attending, and hope you have a great evening or afternoon wherever you are in the world.